Welcome to MLS Roundup from We Are Soccer. I'm Craig Hearn, and as usual, I'm joined by soccer syndicate scout Brooks Laimbeer. Today, Brooks and I will be discussing Toronto FC's new head coach and sporting director, along with the first round of the MLS Playoffs, which just finished up. All right, Brooks, lots to talk about. First, how you doing, man? You been all right for the past week?
Yeah, a short work week here, so Thursday, Friday off. Enjoy the holiday with an extended weekend. But there were some good MLS matches. Went to a few youth matches on last Saturday and Friday night, and no, it's been good. Can't complain.
Good, man. Always good soccer. There's always a lot of soccer going on these days. There's never a dull moment.
Yep.
Well, let's jump in and talk about what's happened up in Toronto. So we know they went through an abysmal year. Just wasn't good enough. They fired their coach, Chris Armas, in July. Then they had an interim coach. Obviously, that wasn't going to be the solution. They have landed on Bob Bradley, former LAFC head coach, former U.S. men's national team head coach, and former coach of several other teams in the world. We can go over that list shortly. He comes in as the new sporting director and head coach, so he'll oversee a lot of the operations there on the playing side and bringing in players. What are your thoughts on this hire? Is it good, bad? What do you think, man?
Yeah, just before I jump in, also another guy that was let go, parted ways, fired, whatever you want to call it, is Ali Curtis, the GM, was let go as well, parted ways. So the Michigan native, the Vardar, played Vardar soccer.
Former Michigan guy, yep.
Yeah, so he's gone. There are rumors that he's going to go help out the new MLS U23 league that's going to start in the spring.
Nice.
Which is not a bad move for him. But yeah, for the Bob Bradley situation, I mean, I think we talked about it in the last episode. When we put it up last week, is that I think it's a good move for him. I think it's an organization that obviously, as we talked about just two minutes ago or a minute ago, they're making internal moves, and it's very common now. If you look, the veteran guys like Peter Vermees, Bruce Arena, and now Bob Bradley, they have dual positions. They have head coach positions and your sporting director, GM. Maybe Greg Vanny at LA Galaxy because DeClose is leaving for Feyenoord in or Fenerbahce or Feyenoord in the Netherlands. You can see Greg Vanny maybe possibly get into like a sporting director GM role over there. So some of these coaches are kind of getting, dual roles to kind of have some power to make the decisions to get the players they want, as well as do kind of the tactical stuff and, maybe leave to the assistant GM or whatnot to do the financial part and the contract part. But I think that's intriguing that Bob got the sporting director role, and I think it'll be good for Toronto. I think it's a team that has a lot of talent. It's a team that's brought in a lot of talent. Sebastian Giovinco's played there. Vasquez, who's now over with Vanny at LA Galaxy. You had a guy like Josie Altidore who just got released, who was with Toronto. Michael Bradley. You've had a lot of really good players. Pozuelo is there right now. I think they're going to sell the one international, the big time guy they brought in, the young Colombian, I think he is. They'll sell him. I believe they're looking to, but it's a good move for him. Like I said, it's the structure within the club. They have a good academy. They have a solid second team where they play a lot of the academy players. They develop them. They play some of the college guys they draft or sign after the draft or in the off season. And they play some of the guys on the lower end of the first team that'll play in the second team. So they have a very good structure going. And I think Bob's really excited. He's talked about the diversity of the city of Toronto, which is an extremely diverse area, a lot of international people that are non-Canadian. It's a very good market and a good city, to have a soccer to be a part of, to be a part of a franchise. So I expect big things from Bob, and I'm sure he'll turn things around, in 2022.
Yeah, almost every MLS club he's been to, he's been able to turn things around and do really well. And I'm expecting the same in Toronto. He does have his son, Michael Bradley, who's playing there, 34 years old, so coming towards the end of his career. I believe Josie Altidore is actually still there and has another year on his contract with Toronto, but we can look into that. So he's got to figure out that situation because Josie Altidore hasn't had the best of time in the past couple of years. So is that something Bob Bradley can turn around? It is going to be interesting to see what he does. I do want to hit upon a point you did mention. It's becoming very popular in the MLS for the head coaches. We'll call them the senior head coaches, people like Bruce Arena, Bob Bradley, Vermees, to take the head coaching role, but also get that sporting director role, so they can be the ones going out, purchasing the players, finalizing those contracts, bringing them in, and then coaching them. It's interesting because the things are going kind of in the other direction over in the Premiership in England, where there's more sporting directors getting hired, and they're not the head coach. So it used to be 10 years ago that they bring a guy in and he'd be your head coach and he'd be your sporting director. But nowadays it's kind of swapped. So it's interesting that the MLS is going in the other direction, is giving those that dual role to one guy. I'm sure we could do a whole segment on that. But with someone like Bob Bradley, right? He's been around forever. He knows the MLS inside and out. He knows where to get players. He knows the good players. He knows how to play. He knows how to coach. He knows how to motivate. He is a guy you definitely want to bring in and go, listen, you've done it before. Do it again for us. And here's full control. Go for it and do what you need to do. So a great hire, I think, for Toronto FC, and something for us to look upon in the next couple of years and say it really worked out well, or ooh, didn't see that coming. So we'll see how it goes.
No, yeah, and he's going to bring his attacking style of football from, he's played, everywhere he's kind of gone. And what I appreciate about Bob is, and I think I've spoken about this before, is, every coach has a little different. Let's talk about the senior guys, kind of like between Vermees, Arena, and Bradley. Bruce is kind of a guy, hey, like, you play how you want to play. Like, I'm not gonna tie you to this system. I'm not gonna tie it to we have to do this. We'll have an idea of how we want to play. A premise, but I'm not going to tie it down to a formation and say, hey, we have to do this. And he lets his guys go. And then you have kind of Vermees where he's a little more structured. There's a little more of a system to it. And then you have Bob that's kind of, he has a system to it, but he wants to play nice attacking football. And what's nice with Bob is every year he teaches himself something. He learns something. He tries to instill something into his teams. Which I think is very interesting. As a veteran coach, you would think a lot of the guys that get older tend to have a specific style they want to play because they played that for so long. But I really think, what'll be fun to watch, the players that Bob Bradley is going to have at TFC with his son Michael and Josie and some of the other younger guys they have, and then whatever additions they add, in the off season or in the draft or whatnot is, just seeing what style of soccer they're going to play. We know they'll play attacking football. Will it be attacking football like it was at LAFC? Will it be a tad different? Right. And that's the fun part is, it's a new club, new country he's in, Canada, new area. And, Bob's very much a guy that wants to bring in players that reflect the culture of the area they're in. So Toronto and the different culture they have. And he's very much a community guy, which is great as well. So it'll be a fun time to watch Bob Bradley at Toronto FC. And you're kind of wondering, is this the last stop for Bob? Does he have like one more after this? Is it kind of like he's going to coach Michael for the last few years and then they'll both kind of walk away? So, and that'd be a good way to go. But I would like to see him stick around for a little longer because I think he's got a lot more to give to the American game.
I agree. It's something for us to look forward to, and you can be guaranteed that anything short of the playoffs is going to be a failure in his eyes, and that's going to be every single year, right? So with that in mind, let's jump in and talk about what's been going on in the playoffs in the first round here of the MLS. So I'll bring up some of the results here we've had. So obviously Portland beat Minnesota 3-1. Sporting Kansas City won 3-1 over Vancouver. And then we'll talk about this a little bit more in depth. The Seattle Real Salt Lake 0-0 with Real Salt Lake going through on penalties. And then New York City, NYCFC beating Atlanta 2-0. Nashville 3-1 over Orlando. And Philadelphia Union 1-0 over the Red Bulls. Out of all those games we just talked about, minus the Seattle Real Salt Lake game, which is one that stood out to you? That just intrigued you and maybe one that caught you by surprise?
I think the way Portland responded to Minnesota, I think people kind of thought that Portland would get it from the get-go, and I watched that whole entire match, and it was 1-1 at halftime, and the way Portland responded in the second half of that match, I think was what they needed. They had Providence Park. It's hard to win at Providence Park, but Portland in the last, I think it was the 7-8 matches, Portland was 1 win and 7 losses, and that only 1 win coming in that The year that Minnesota expanded into the league and they started off with Portland, that year they came into the league and Portland smacked them like 6-7-1 at home. It was pretty embarrassing. And dropping games to Minnesota United after that, that's not acceptable. From the Portland organization and the team and the staff and players and such. So that was interesting, that match. And that one got really, really chippy. That one, like Fragpani, with the play on Chara, he 2-footed him. That was definitely for me a red card. There was no intention of going for the ball. And I'm shocked that they didn't use VAR to review that one.
Lucky boy to stay on the pitch there. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. And so yeah, that one to me, Steve Clark coming up with some big saves. Blanco, one hell of a goal, striking it from 30 yards out off the post and in. And Tyler Miller getting COVID and Dane St. Clair have to step in. That was a bit of a challenge for Minnesota as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I know Portland got it done, but it was a little scary at the beginning because I didn't think people thought Portland was going to roll through it, but they thought it may have been a bit easier than it was. I guess another big surprise was Nashville Orlando because I expected 1-1 and PKs, but it was 3 goals. I mean, Mukhtar going off and scoring, and geez, man, what a player he's been for Nashville.
Oh man, he had a hell of a game, and man, he was just unstoppable there. But yeah, I mean, it didn't look like it was going to end up that way with DK scoring in the 15th minute so early on, just poor marking off that corner, and then you're right, Hani Mukhtar, he was on fire, and just everything he touched seemed to turn to goals.
Yep.
So yeah, I didn't see that coming either. Let's jump in and talk about this Seattle Real Salt Lake. So I'm as you can see, Seattle Real Salt Lake up in Seattle, tied 0-0. Real Salt Lake win 6-5 on penalties. But what's interesting about is the stats. Shots 21-0, on target 3-0, possession 62% to Seattle, 38% to RSL. Now possession doesn't bother me; it's the shots. They didn't have a single shot in the entire game, and yet they go through. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter just complaining about it, but you know what? That's soccer. That's how it works. And the soccer gods were not on Seattle's side in this game. But I had Seattle winning it all. I thought they were going to be good enough to go through and win this entire thing. Not to be. What are your thoughts on that game, man?
Yeah. I mean, I watched the first half of that one. I went to bed after the first half.
Was that boring, huh?
Yeah, well, you have work the next morning. You have to get up at 6 o'clock, and you wanted some sleep. I mean, just kind of after watching the first half, I mean, you saw that dominance. I mean, Jordan Morris coming back for him and getting him behind and creating chances, and I mean, Rui Diaz and Ladero didn't start, and Will Broom was out with an injury, but I mean that Seattle team is loaded, and with Christian Roldan in there, and Stefan Fry, as I've always said, being one of the best goalkeepers in MLS, and then it's the backline players with the wing backs they have with Smith and Alex Roldan, and I mean, with O'Neal back there too on the back line. I mean, and João Paulo in the midfield with Rodan, and it's, it was crazy. It's just Seattle is a team that, but it was kind of stated though in the game that they haven't really won a lot of games the past 2 years at home. It's kind of, they've been better on the road than they have at home, and that's a little shocking for Seattle. But you expected Seattle to get it done. But the one theme I think that we need to touch on with RSL is RSL has gone through one hell of a year this past year with the stuff that's happened with the owner. The league looking for a buyer, Freddie Juarez leaving to take the assistant job at Seattle, and Mastroeni stepping in. I mean, the one thing Pablo Mastroeni was stressing was we need to work hard. Like, the guys weren't working hard enough at the beginning of the season. I mean, hard work and seeing things through, was the message that he's been preaching ever since he took over as interim manager. And I mean, you can see that, maybe we'll get outplayed, outshot, but we work hard to the final whistle, and you take it to PKs, and anything can happen in PKs. And credit to David Ochoa standing on top of his head, because he's had some blunders this past MLS season,
Yeah.
And obviously with the US U23s and in the Olympic qualifying. But credit to him. I mean, he stood on his head. He made some big saves, the big PK saves, and Justin Glad, finishing off, hitting off the post inside and
Yep.
going in the goal to advance them 6-5 on PK. So, RSL just, they're a team that's fighting for the fans. They're fighting for the organization, and that's, you don't want to play a team like that when they have a lot they're playing for. That's scary, and that SKC team better be ready in this next round.
You took the words out of my mouth there. It's because Real Salt Lake beat Seattle. They now face SKC, and that's going to be a nice little matchup there. I gotta be honest, Real Salt Lake rode their luck there against Seattle. I don't think they can do the same thing 2 games in a row. I think SKC might kind of take that one. I don't want to say fairly easily, but if I'm a betting man, and I'm going to put money on SKC.
Yes. I think one thing we have to remember too is that blown call where they beat SKC a couple weeks ago to advance into the playoffs. And I think that is in the back of the minds of SKC, because Peter Vermees was really giving it to MLS, and he got fined for some of the stuff he said about needing to review that to see if the handball was a handball.
Yeah.
So I think that's in the back of mind of SKC's head. But if you're RSL, you're like, hey, we've gone into this place and gotten a result. Doesn't matter how we got it, whether there was a missed call or whatever. RSL feels confident that they go into Seattle and they can beat Seattle at Lumen Field. Why can't we beat SKC at Children's Mercy Park?
Absolutely. So there's definitely some a little bit of revenge coming and a little bit of confidence in the other direction. Anything can happen. The other game there in that side in the Western Conference is Colorado and Portland. Portland head up to Colorado to play. They're down to Colorado from where they're at. That'll be interesting. That'll be an interesting game right there, my friend. Your thoughts on that? Who you got going through?
Yeah, well, let's first start that this is on Thanksgiving, and it's after the Lions-Bears game on Fox, and it's Big Fox, not FS1. This is like big stream Fox. So
good call.
What you're doing before you sit down or when you're eating, people watch this game. That's all I have to say. It's going to be a good one. This will be a very interesting matchup. Colorado's had a lot of time to kind of relax and sit back.
23 days, I believe, or something like that between their last game and this game. That's a lot of time, man.
Yes, and sometimes too much time is not good. It's you relax too much, and there's not enough competition where you're ready when Portland's out of the gate and they have to battle Minnesota to win 3-1. Listen, there's always the conditions in Colorado, the altitude and such, and then if it's cold and snowy, you have to deal with that as well. But listen, Portland's going to come out and they're gonna come out strong. How does Colorado respond after being off so long? That's the question. Right. They earned that number 1 seed. Robin Fraser, one hell of a year he had taking over the Colorado Rapids. And I mean, I think it's been a year and a half into the job because he took over into the season in the last season. But that's going to be a tough one. That could go to PKs. that one could be. I think it can go many different ways depending on who shows up or who takes over the match. So, you could have a lot of goals in that one. It could be very, very close to the end, and someone squeaks out a 1-0 win, or it gets to PKs. You never know, when you're playing at Colorado, but it's going to be a good match.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's a good match. I'm hoping there's lots of goals because, like you said, it's on Fox. That's main Fox on Thanksgiving Day, and I want people to tune in. I want them to see goals. I want them to see what the MLS is about and its goals and fun. So you're right. Hopefully that's an entertaining game. On the other side, in the Eastern Conference, coming up in another 5 or 6 days, we've got New England at home to NYC, and then Philadelphia at home to Nashville. Out of those 2 games, which one are you most looking forward to watching?
Man, New York City really impressed me in that first round match against Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta could do nothing. And again, it's hard when you're playing a Yankee Stadium, with a team like New York City that's very used to that the smaller pitch, length and width wise. So But New York City was very much on fire. You saw 37-year-old Maxi Morales very active, and he got he got a fair amount of time off, to kind of rest and regenerate. So, I mean, that's the question is, now it's, jumping to the 21st to the 30th, you have 9 days, you're sitting in, so you have some time and rest in between, unlike Portland, going to Colorado in 4 days.
4 days later, that's it's crazy the way these playoffs are set up like this. One team's got 9 days and the other team's got 4 days, and it's a little
Exactly.
bizarre. MLS needs to kind of figure this out.
Exactly. But yeah, for New York City, I mean, that's going to be a very interesting one. New England, again, they've had a very long time off, and they really need to be ready to go. Yeah, you won Supporter Shield. Yeah, you crushed, you set the new, season, most points in the season, in an MLS season. I mean, you did a lot of great things this year, but if they're not ready to go, NYCFC is a team that could steal that match. But I mean, I love that Philly Nashville match. I mean, it's not going to be pretty from Philly. Nashville's a very defensive team, but they showed against Orlando that they're willing to come out and not just sit back and defend, that they have guys like Mukhtar and Dax McCarty running in the midfield with Godoy, and they've shown that when they move to a 4-back system, they can do it. And we'll see if they get Dave Romney back. He's been out for the last couple of weeks. But Jack Mayer's done a great job, the young lad from St. Louis and the IU guy left early out of IU, played 2 years. So I mean, it's going to be very interesting, those 2 games. But I think the one that intrigues me, because NYCFC's kind of found their form a bit, is that NYCFC Revs match.
Yeah. That's a heck of a matchup against New England, who
Yeah.
Supporter Shield winner. They got the MVP there. They got the Golden Glove winner and Matt Turner. So they got a hell of a team this year. You wouldn't be surprised if they went on and win it. But that's going to be a heck of a game. All right, what we're going to do now is just a quick little update on the bracket challenge that we have going on from We Are Soccer. And look at me, I'm in first, but that's not going to last long because I had Seattle winning it all, and obviously they just got dumped out in the first round.
Yes.
Brooks, you are in
tied for last.
Tied for last, but
Yeah.
you have New England winning it all, so you're going to gain some steam here and get some points.
Yeah.
Move up this board, I have no doubt. So, but interesting to see the points we have. Again, the only game I got wrong was that Seattle game. And I don't think anybody saw that coming. So
No.
I believe several of us in here had Seattle at least going through to the final. So a lot of us are going to drop away here.
Yes.
Unlike you, who's going to gain points. And we'll keep track of this as we go on here as the playoffs move along. So anyway, good times. Brooks, thanks for joining. The insights, phenomenal as usual. And we'll do it again next week.
I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully there'll be some crazy matches to talk about next week.
I'm sure there will. All right, buddy. Take care. Cheers.
Cheers. Take care.